This video is brought to you by BetterHelp. In case you guys haven't heard, everyone's going to space.
Space.
And you don't have to be a billionaire in a dong-shaped rocket to know that space exploration is popping off. From Twitter's new stepdad's attempt to make space tourism a thing, to NASA's recent return to the moon, zero-gravity expeditions are all the rage. At the same time, more and more warning signs suggest that life on Earth might soon become untenable. Stephen Hawking argued that the best way to protect humanity's future is by colonizing other planets. But plenty of philosophers, including Ian Stoner, disagree, contending that humans pose a destructive threat to other planets' ecosystems, as well as any potential life forms found on them. In the words of our favorite algorithmic cop,
human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet.
So does the only way to sustain human life rest in space travel with the hope of eventual space colonization, i.e. developing permanent habitats where humans can safely live? Or is this pursuit merely condemning other planets to the same fate as Earth? And what ultimately is the purpose of going interstellar? Let's find out in this Wisecrack Edition, Is Space Travel Pointless? But before we go on, I want to thank this video sponsor, BetterHelp. Now, if you've experienced anxiety or depression or just felt overwhelmed lately, BetterHelp is a resource that can help you feel better. As someone that's struggled with depression my whole life, I know that feeling is real and it sucks, but therapy can really help. BetterHelp's network of more than 20,000 therapists are ready to listen to and help you. Now, after taking a brief questionnaire, you'll be matched with a therapist whose expertise fits your unique need. And thanks to BetterHelp's remote model, you can work with a therapist whose skills might not otherwise be available in your area. Now, once you're matched, you'll be able to communicate with your therapist within 48 hours. You can message your therapist at any time and you'll receive timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule your choice of secure phone or video sessions to receive therapy in real time. And in the event that you and your therapist aren't a perfect match, you can easily switch to a new one for no additional charge. So join the more than 2 million people who have taken charge of their mental health with BetterHelp by visiting betterhelp.com/wisecrack, or just click the link in the video description. When you do, you'll get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/wisecrack. And now, back to the show. As astronomer Chris Impey argues in his book, Beyond Our Future in Space, human beings have, since our earliest days, been hardwired for exploration and risk-taking. In fact, researchers have even identified the so-called wayfarer gene in our DNA, which primes us for exploration from birth. Such explorations throughout history have been romanticized in art and culture. History books fawn over treacherous expeditions by sea, or the immortal travels of the Penn and Teller of canoe trips, Lewis and Clark. But this rosy view of human exploration clouds the fact that historically, it's usually been a struggle for power and resources. This is certainly true of space exploration, which began with the Cold War space race between the US and the USSR, whose launching of Sputnik in 1957 left the world reeling. As writer Paul Dixon explains, politically, Sputnik created a perception of American weakness, complacency, and a missile gap. Since then, space exploration has been inextricably connected with political and military power. Scholar Brian Patrick Green notes that ever since Sputnik, governments have sought the ultimate high ground to achieve military supremacy in space. While the militarization aspect of space exploration hasn't gone away, in recent years, a new dimension of space travel has emerged. We now have the backdrop of a potential mass extinction event caused by human-made climate change, which experts agree now threatens organized life on Earth. And other experts agree is a hoax constructed by the Clinton Foundation. It's worth noting that one of the big drivers of climate change has been Western colonialism, i.e. the domination of a people or area by a foreign state or nation. As scholar Hadil Asali explains, instead of treating the Earth like a precious entity that gives us life, Western colonial legacies operate within a paradigm that assumes they can extract its natural resources as much as they want, and the Earth will regenerate itself. So as attempts at space colonization ramp up, it seems like a good time to ask, why are we doing this? And what is the point? Space travel has not been universally celebrated. Some see it as an escape hatch to avoid dealing with the climate we've ruined on Earth. Others suggest that the history of exploration and colonization shows that human beings are destructive and exploitative and don't deserve a shiny new planet. To describe a sensibility common amongst thinkers who oppose space exploration, philosopher Kelly C. Smith coined the term eco-nihilism. He explains that eco-nihilists argue that until and unless humans can demonstrate our ability to live in harmony with our environment, humankind deserves extinction, and thus colonization of other worlds in the foreseeable future would be immoral. Smith explains that eco-nihilists often start from three key assumptions. First, the inevitability of doom, i.e. the belief that humans will screw things up again. Then, there's collective guilt, i.e. we all feel pretty shitty for f***ing up our world so badly. And then there's radical moral egalitarianism, the idea that all living things, and maybe even non-living things, have equal moral value to humans. To speak to radical moral egalitarianism, it's worth looking at the term deep ecology, coined by philosopher Arne Naess. For deep ecology, the big question is nature intrinsically valuable, or only valuable in so much as it helps satisfy human needs and desires? Naess argues the former, writing that 1, the well-being and flourishing of human and non-human life on Earth have value in themselves. These values are independent of the usefulness of the non-human world for human purposes. 2, richness and diversity of life forms contribute to the relation of these values and are also values in themselves. And 3, human beings have no right to reduce this richness and diversity except to satisfy vital needs. Based on this foundation, eco-nihilists argue that space exploration is pointless. Human activities have proven to be inherently destructive. Other planets have value independent of human purposes, and colonization could potentially ruin them. In other words, we don't get another planet until we can take care of the one we already have. However, Smith argues against eco-nihilism. He cites Stephen Hawking, who had a vision that prioritized human preservation. He wrote, "We have given our planet the disastrous gift of climate change. When we have reached similar crises, there has usually been somewhere else to colonize. But there is no new world, no utopia around the corner. We are running out of space, and the only places to go are other worlds." The utility and morality of space travel really comes down to whether we believe human beings are capable of behaving differently in the future. It's like the moral equivalent of trusting your cheating partner to be different this time. They won't. You deserve better. Move on. And shout out your cheating partner's name in the comments so we can all say, no, not this time, buddy. Don't really do that. As Smith points out, if you're extremely pessimistic about humanity's long-term ability to curb our environmental irresponsibility, it's reasonable to think colonizing other planets might not be a good idea. If you think this is a challenge we can likely meet, and you believe colonizing other planets is a good way to ensure humanity's long-term survival, then it's hard to see why we shouldn't at least try. For his part, Elon Musk's stated goal for SpaceX is human preservation. He said that history is going to bifurcate along two directions. One direction is hanging out on Earth, keeping up the same behavior, and risking an eventual extinction event. Another is to become a space-faring civilization. His plan includes getting 1 million people to Mars by 2050 by making loans available for those who don't have money, and then having them pay them off via what is functionally indentured servitude once they make it to the red planet. Now, if that sounds a lot like colonization, it's because that literally was a long-time strategy for colonization. Indeed, indentured servants were the very basis of the workforce in early colonial America until indentured servants were mostly replaced by forcibly enslaved people. Now, eco-nihilists would likely argue that Musk's goals are not humanitarian and don't take into account the best interests of the planet, or for that matter, the universe. But there are ways to think about space exploration that don't inherently mean giving up on Earth to find a new place in the galaxy to shack up. And resigning the life here to the mess we have left behind. For example, NASA recently completed the DART mission, humanity's first attempt to deflect an asteroid, a technique that would have come in handy for the dinosaurs. Going forward, NASA hopes to track all dangerous asteroids in order to protect human beings and all life on Earth. This makes us think that though eco-nihilists make fair points, maybe they're a bit extreme. For example, What should we make of the claim that humans don't deserve to survive the damage we've wrought on the environment? That seems to presuppose that human nature possesses some inherent flaw that makes us particularly environmentally destructive. But it's important to remember that climate change has largely been caused by a small subset of humans. According to one report, the world's wealthiest 10% contributed to approximately half of global greenhouse gas emissions in 2015. The top 1% were responsible for twice as much as the world's poorest 50%. What's more, those who have contributed least to climate change are disproportionately feeling its effects. Eco-nihilism risks ignoring the disparity in responsibility for climate change when it assumes no humans deserve to survive. It also discounts the fact that for the majority of human history, we've managed to coexist peacefully and responsibly with our natural habitat. But of course, very recent history has witnessed human-made environmental destruction on a cataclysmic scale. Now, does that suggest that future destruction, including of other planets, is inevitable? It's only natural to predict the future by pointing to evidence from the past. But it's probably a lot more complicated. That's because of what academic John Danaher calls axiological change, which describes the way human morals and values vary across time and space. He writes, axiological change is a constant feature of human history. When we look back to the moral values of our ancestors, we cannot help but notice that they differed from our own. Because of that, he argues, to understand future human actions, we have to assume that our values will be different. Thus, it's misguided to judge the future by the past or even the present. It's possible, if a bit optimistic, to postulate that future humans may learn from the mistakes of our past. Hannah Arendt similarly argues that every human action from the time of birth is a new beginning, a chance to do better than before. So where does that leave eco-nihilism? The underlying presumption that all life has equal value supplies a very, valuable contrast to the way we usually think about and prioritize human life over other living things. It suggests that we should not see space exploration as a chance to abandon the rest of life on Earth, to consign other species to the damage we've inflicted, or to inflict it on new ecosystems in the great beyond. But as NASA's recent DART mission shows, there's reason to believe that to some extent, space exploration can also be a way of protecting and improving life on Earth. And if it's true that all of nature is equally valuable, human survival remains a moral good, especially if we can, do better. So if space travel can contribute to that survival, it just might be good too. Much of JFK's impetus for kicking American space travel into lightspeed stemmed from his desire to maintain America's superpower exceptionalism. In his famous speech, he cautioned,
"Man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not. And it is one of the great adventures of all time. And no nation which expects to be the leader of other nations can expect to stay behind in this race for space."
Genuine enthusiasm for the symbolic power of space travel was essential to propelling America into zero gravity. But what happens when space travel starts being the territory of non-state actors like Musk and Bezos, who are now using their private wealth to fund the future of humankind's exploration while employing the same romantic narrative pioneered by Kennedy? Does space exploration just become a way to justify using their staggering wealth to build themselves and their richest friends an escape hatch to get the hell off a up planet that they helped ruin? Such escapism doesn't seem likely to compel humans to change our destructive behavior either here or on Mars. Perhaps then, for futurists and explorers alike, eco-nihilism can serve as a set of warnings from the past and lessons for the future rather than a prohibition on exploration. It can help us frame space travel less as an eject button and more as one of many tools to help us recover from the damage we've inflicted and start building a more sustainable future. But what do you all think? Will we learn from our mistakes and build a better world or two? Or will the tech gods leave us on Earth to die alone as they drink space margaritas on Mars? Let us know what you think in the comments, and if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much to our patrons for being our patrons and supporting the channel. If you have not checked out our Patreon in a while, please do. Got a bunch of great perks on there, and it's the best way for you to directly support the channel. But as always, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon. Later.